بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. My dear respected brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah the Almighty, the Lord of the Arsh and Kursi, says in the noble Quran, when you open up the words of Allah and you open up to Surah Al-A'raf, verse number 31, Allah calling out to the son of Adam, He says, Ya Bani Adam, khudhu zinatakum inda kulli masjid. That, O son of Adam, when you attend the masjid, then you should dress in the best of manners. Then in the same verse, Allah goes on to say, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. And eat and drink, but do not be wasteful. إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. For indeed Allah the Almighty, the Lord of the Arsh and Kursi, does not like those who are wasteful. Now the topic of today's talk is health and well-being in Islam. Now I want to focus on this very verse at hand. And I want to focus on the instruction of the Almighty Allah, where He says, Kulu washrabu wala tusrifu. That eat and drink, but do not be wasteful. Then I want you to ponder and reflect over the many diseases and illnesses that we see in our very community today. Diseases such as diabetes type 2, diseases such as gout, diseases such as obesity, which then in turn causes cancer. When you look at all of these diseases and illnesses which are rampant in our community, and you look at the root cause of these diseases and these ailments, you go to your local GP and you ask your local general practitioners, what is the main reason why our uncles and aunts, our mothers and fathers, our grandfathers and grandmothers, and our newly born children all suffer with the similar disease patterns, diseases such as high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes and the like. And the common answer will be, it's because of the food that we eat. But Allah said kulu, and Allah said washrabu. Allah told us to eat, and Allah told us to drink. So how is it that Allah has commanded us to eat, and Allah has commanded us to drink, but the very food that we eat is making us fall ill? So we need to look into this further, because the kalam of Allah, the words of my Almighty Allah, can never be wrong. The Almighty Allah, His words are true. His words will always remain the haqq. So if Allah told us to eat from the provisions that He has provided, and if Allah has told us to drink from that which He has provided, then surely there must be good in that food and good in that drink. But why is it that when we eat from that which Allah has provided, we become ill? We become suffering, our heart becomes congested, our arteries become congested, there's fat building around our vessels. Why is this? Because the very reason is we read part of the verse but we miss the other part. What did Allah say? Kulu washrabu wala tusrifu. He said eat and drink, but do not be wasteful. How many restaurants are there now serving buffets on platters? Look into the hotels in this world. You go for Umrah, you go for Hajj, and you stay in a 5-star, 6-star, 7-star hotel. You're performing tawaf and you're out of breath. You can't even do the ramal, which is the sunnah of performing your tawaf, which was the sign of manhood. When the believers came and they performed Umrah, when Makkah was captured by the mushrikeen, the Prophet ﷺ, he told his companions that when you perform tawaf, you're going to perform it in such a way that the kuffar will think you are men who have this strong blood in your veins. So you perform the ramal, which is to trot, which is not to run, not to walk, but something in between, which shows your quwwah. So you go for Hajj, you go for Umrah, you're out of breath after mere 2 circuits of doing your tawaf. But when it's breakfast time, there's a full buffet on your plate. Allah is telling you, eat, yes, not a problem. Drink, yes, not a problem. But be wasteful, that is where the problem is. When you go home today, I want you to open up your wheelie bins. Open up those black bags and see how much food is wasted in those black bags. This is going against the kalam of Allah. This is going against the instruction of the Almighty Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the greatest of all creation, who could have had everything in this dunya but chose to live a life. And he would make dua, Allahumma ahyini miskinan, wa amitni miskinan, wa hshurni fi zumratil masakin. The greatest of all creation is lifting up his hands and making dua to Allah. Though Allah, make me live in this world like a miskeen, like a poor person. Give me the death of a poor person and raise me on the day of judgment in the ranks of the same ranks as those of the poor people. We live like kings today. All the foods of the world are served to us by the touch of a button. Just Eat, Uber Eats, Deliveroo. By the touch of a button, you can get the fresh honey mangoes from Pakistan. You can get fresh khatl from Bangladesh. You can get the best spices of the world. Eat and drink, not a problem. But being wasteful, that is the cause of your diseases and the illnesses and the ailments that you suffer. You see, when we eat, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he mentioned in the hadith, he says that ما ملأ آدمي وعاء شرا من بطن حسب الآدمي لقيمات يقمن صلبه فإن غلبت الآدمين نفسه فثلث للطعام وثلث للشراب وثلث للنفس. This hadith has been collected by Imam Ibn Majah in his Sunan, in which Miqdam ibn Ma'di Karib said, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam say that ما ملأ آدمي وعاء شرا من بطن, that a human being fills no worse vessel than his own stomach. The worst container to fill is none other but your own stomach. He says it's sufficient for a human being that he eat a few mouthfuls, just enough morsels that enable him to keep his back upright. But if he must fill his stomach, then this is what he should do. A third of his stomach should be for food, a third for water, and the remaining third should be air. However, when it comes to our bodies, not a fifth or a sixth or an eighth can be left with air. We're searching the fridge, we're searching the drawers, we're searching for the snacks. We're ready to go out and purchase more food. Why? Because there's 5% of air left in our stomachs. This is the reason why you're always ill. This is the reason why you're always tired. This is the reason why you can't perform your normal ibadah in the day, because you are overeating, overindulgence. Now the time has come to make that change. Why? Because it is an instruction from Allah the Almighty Himself that when you eat and drink, do not be wasteful in your food. Likewise, it is an instruction from the greatest of all creation that when you eat, not a problem, but only fill a third of your stomach with the food and reserve a third for the water that you drink. And 1/3 of your stomach should be left for air. Now at home today, we sit on our lavish dining tables. We sit upright on our chairs. Maybe this is the cause for your overindulgence. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would sit and eat with his companions, when you go out for tabligh, when you go out for jamaat, spend time with the satis, and then they will teach you how to sit and how to eat. The only way you're going to inculcate the sunnah into your life today is by joining this effort of tabligh, my brothers. When you go out in the way of Allah, and when you spend time with the brothers whose worry and concern is none but to instill the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam into your life, this is when you will be successful. So if you haven't already, I urge you to go out in the way of Allah. The very least that you can do is spend time in the company of the ulama, who will teach you these very important sunnahs which you can't get from a book. See, a common misconception today is if you can relate a hadith from Bukhari and Muslim, you're a scholar. But this is not the tradition of the rightly guided. This is not the tradition of our pious elders. This knowledge was passed from heart to heart. There is a vast collection of ahadith which can only be acquired through physical interaction with the teacher. When you're face to face with the teacher, when you spend time in the suhbah of your shaykh, and when you see how he talks, how he walks, how he sits, how he consumes food, how he puts his shoes on, only then will you be able to bring this sunnah into your life. So the sunnah of eating is to sit on the floor in a manner which compresses the stomach. If you adapt and apply this method of sitting down and eating into your life, you will see automatically you will feel full before 1/3 of your stomach is filled with food. Today we have online health coaches and gurus out there. Whereas when you look into the superfoods that are being marketed and branded, so much so that even the miswak has been branded today. Recently I saw adverts of a non-Muslim company marketing the miswak as a natural toothbrush. All the cures for every disease, there's a cure except for death. And when you look into the sunnah, if you apply the basics that we learn from the lifetime, from the lifestyle of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you will see you will do away with many of the diseases that we see in the world. Just like this very little mention that we made of sitting on the floor and consuming your food, which will help you prevent yourself from overeating. So overeating is one cause of the problem. The second cause of the problem is when man interferes with the food that we consume. What do I mean by this? You take the example of orange juice. We all know Coke's bad for you, especially because they support Israel. But nonetheless, all carbonated drinks, high in fructose and sugar and caffeine, we all know, I don't have to explain that to you, we all know it's bad for us. A can of Coke contains on average 39 grams of sugar, which is about 7.5 teaspoons of sugar. Now if I was to tell you, bring me a cup of water and I put just 3 teaspoons of sugar and I give it back to you, would you drink it? But yet many of us substitute water for Coke and Pepsi. A big bottle of Pepsi is like 100 packets of sugar, but yet we still consume it. Then we have the other cohort in our community who will drink juices from concentrate, pasteurized juices, and will think, oh, I'm not drinking Coke or Pepsi, I'm a healthy person. Well, that carton of juice, orange juice, it may read as 27 grams of sugar, which is less than the Coke can. But let's look into how it was made and how it was produced. They pasteurize it, meaning they take it to such extreme temperatures that the vitamin C burns out. All the vitamins in the drink, in the orange juice, are burnt. It's left in containers for a year. So much so that many of these juice manufacturing companies then have to go to a third party company to come in, re-engineer this drink to make it flavoursome again, adding more artificial chemicals. Then you buy it from your Tesco and your Asda. It's already been on the shelf for weeks, and you bring it home. Now you experiment this yourself. Take an orange, squeeze the juice out the orange. Leave that orange juice, the fresh orange juice, in the fridge. You will see, after just 2 or 3 days, you won't be able to drink it. It's gone off. Whereas that carton of orange juice from concentrate, 99p from Asda, you can leave it for 6 weeks in your fridge and it tastes the same. Now ask yourself, if this is the artificial substances that you're consuming in your body, is it so far-fetched to understand why now you're always ill? So there's 2 reasons why our nutrition is making us ill. One is overconsumption, overeating, overindulgence. And the second is because as soon as man meddles with our food, it's lost its organicness. It's lost the qualities Allah has produced within that food. Now we look at our diet. Many of us from Asian families, we consider it an aib if there's no meat cooked at home. If I was to invite you to my house today and all I prepared was dal, you would probably think, what a cheapskate. Yeah. Providing meat, chicken and fish is a mandatory requirement. Otherwise, the man is ready to divorce his wife. Yes or no? But the studies show that biologically for a human to function, they only need to consume meat once a week. When we look into the diet of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one remarkable finding is that there's actually no hadith to state that he ever ate the meat of a cow. Not to say that it's haram, it's perfectly halal to eat cows, but there's actually no evidence to suggest that our beloved, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ever consumed the meat of a cow. When we look into his diet, you will find that he actually had a semi-vegetarian diet. Most of the foods that he consumed were plant-based. Yes, there was some meat within his diet, but not to the extent that we eat today. So much so that at the time of Umar Allahu An, he actually made it forbidden for people to consume meat 2 days in a row, out of the fears of what it would do to the people. Now when you look into the lives of the companions, and you read about their lives, and you read about the remarkable events that took place in their life, and then question, where are the youth today? I'll give you an example. There was a youngster by the name of Salma ibn al-Akwa. His name was Salma, the son of Akwa. He was only 12 years old when this incident occurred. Early part of one night, there was a group of 12 bandits who attacked the shepherd of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and ran off with the camels that belonged to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that were grazing. This young boy, Salma ibn al-Akwa, radillahu an, who was only 12 years old, narrations mention he was faster than a horse in a race. He saw these bandits. He climbed the hill and he called out, Ya Sabaha, Ya Sabaha. He raised the alarm. Then barefooted himself alone, chased these 12 bandits. They felt like an entire army was chasing them. And he was shooting arrows at them. And he was saying, Ana ibnul Aqwa, al-yawma rawmul rudda. That I am the son of Aqwa. I am no ordinary son. Today is the day I'll remind you of your mother's milk. And he caught all the 12 bandits, single-handedly brought them back to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We hear about the likes of Khalid bin Walid and Zubayr ibn al-Awwam radiallahu anhuma, who were such fierce on the battlefield that they could walk on 2 horses with 2 feet and fight equally as well with both hands, with swords in their hands. This was what the Sahaba were like. This was the bravery that they had. This was the physical power that they had. And we know the famous hadith, Al-Mu'minu al-Qawi khayrun min al-Mu'min al-Da'if. That a strong believer, yes in Iman, but strong in everything that a believer does. Strong in his physical appearance. Strong in his mental fortitude. A stronger believer will always be better than a weaker believer. It's time to rise up as men once again. The duty of a Muslim man is to protect and provide for his family. Now let me ask you today, if you were in a situation now where you had to physically defend your family, your community, but you can't even do a single pull-up, you can't even do 5 press-ups without losing your breath, you can't stay in a plank for less than a minute, then what kind of man are you? Do you not owe it to yourself to see this beautiful body Allah has given you as an amana, to see in it the best of forms? Has the time not come to exert the energy Allah has given you and to look after the bounties Allah has given you before they are taken away from you? And this reminds me of a famous hadith collected by Imam Bayhaqi in Shu'ab al-Iman and also by Imam Hakim and Imam Ibn Abi Dunya, in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ightanim khamsan qabla khamsin," that take heed of 5 before the coming of 5. Take advantage of 5 before the coming of 5. What are those 5 things? Shababaka qabla haramik, your youth before your old age. Wa sihhataka qabla saqamik, your health before you become ill. Wa ghinaka qabla faqarik, your wealth before you become impoverished. Wa faragaka qabla shughlik, your free time before you become preoccupied. Wa hayataka qabla mautik, and your life before your death. Now we have many problems within our community today. One of those problems is the disease of smoking. Smoking, tobacco, cigarettes is one of the greatest causes of cancer. Now let me tell you what cancer is. Your body is made up of organs. Every organ in your body is made up of tissue. Now the tissue that the organs are made up of cells. Now when you look at a cell under a microscope, what you'll find is that every cell contains a nucleus. And inside this nucleus you have strands of DNA. Now there are carcinogenic materials in the atmosphere. There are carcinogenic materials in your food. And smoking, cigarettes, tobacco is known to be a carcinogen. When it comes into contact with your cells, what it will do to these DNA strands in the nucleus of your cell, it will cause mutations in these cells. So now these cells will start to develop. They will start to reproduce. They will start to replicate and they will not know when to stop. This is what causes cancer. This is what develops into extra tissue. This tissue is called a tumor. Tumor can be benign by nature, where they just occupy space, or they can be malignant, where they now start infiltrating everything around them. More than 80% of lung cancers are associated with smoking. Smoking not only affects the smoker, but it affects those around him. Those who passively smoke are also prone to developing cancer. There are 3 stages of developing cancer, which is the scientific term is carcinogenesis. It starts with initiation, then it moves into promotion, then it moves into progression. Now you may have already come into this world and there may be cells in your body which you inherited from your parents and your lineage. Someone somewhere down the line in your family may have had cancer, because of which you have come into this world and your body already contains cells that are initiated, meaning they are not yet cancer. But if they come into contact with something that is carcinogenic, then these cells will begin to mutate. And when they start to mutate, they will start to replicate. And when they replicate uncontrollably, they develop into a tumor. And this tumor then becomes malignant. And it starts to eat away the flesh around it. And it starts to spread from one primary organ to a secondary organ. And when it moves to a secondary organ, then it's game over for you. And let me tell you, my brothers, when you start smoking and you smoke in front of your kids and you're smoking and you're coming to the masjid and you're bringing this dirty filth and this dirty smoke into the house of Allah, and may you be cursed, those who bring this filthy, disgusting stuff near the house of Allah, and you smoke in the car parks of the masjid, and you're smoking in front of someone's grandfather who's already got comorbidities, who's already got cardiovascular disease, who's already on the brink of death, and you smoke in front of these vulnerable people, and you passively smoke, what is happening? This smoke is not only initiating cancer cells, it then causes promotion of these cancer cells. And let me tell you, my brothers, when cancer cells become promoted, then they progress into malignancy, and that is when people lose limbs because of cancer. People lose. I have treated patients that have lost part of their face because of cancer. Smoking causes the worst types of cancers known to man. So if you're still living in the 21st century and you're arguing that it's only makruh tanzihi, let me tell you one thing, my brothers, it is haram. Because the evidence tells us, the evidence has proven that smoking is linked to cancer. And cancer causes death. Is it halal to commit suicide, my brothers? Then those of you sat here today who have a box of B&H in your pockets or in your car, let me tell you what the problem is with you. Oh, I can't stop smoking. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You didn't come out your mother's womb smoking now, did you? Your mom fed you milk, not tobacco and nicotine. All your bones and flesh and blood and muscles developed without this nicotine and without this tobacco. What makes you think you're going to die if you stop smoking? Take that first step to Allah. You take that one step to Allah, Allah will come running to you. You're struggling. There's ample help out there to help you stop smoking. Now, on the subject of stopping smoking, my brothers, let me talk to you about vaping and e-cigarettes. There's many youngsters here today, never smoked a fag in their life, but they're out there in every bob shop in Birmingham, buying canisters of helium, buying the latest disposable vaping devices, buying the latest mods out there. Let me tell you what the dangers of vaping are, my brothers and sisters. When you start vaping, the very first thing that will happen to you is nicotine addiction. Majority of the e-cigarettes contain nicotine. You start vaping today, you will be hooked on this nicotine for the rest of your life, which will then lead to long-term health conditions, such as heart disease, lung damage, and an increased risk of stroke. When you inhale these vaporized chemicals, what will then happen to you is you will begin to develop respiratory issues. You will begin to develop coughing and wheezing. These toxic chemicals, many of which contain substances like formaldehyde, are known to cause cancer. They are known to cause respiratory problems. And there's a new condition not in the respiratory world, which is a new phenomenon, which we're seeing more and more of, which is something known as popcorn lung, which is caused by vaping. Now, vaping has also been associated with leading problems to memory, concentration, learning difficulties, and decreasing brain function altogether. That's probably the reason why those of you in Hifz class and AL-ILM class, vaping, hidden behind your teachers' backs, are failing all your exams and can't read your sabak. Have you ever thought it's probably the vaping that's doing this to me? So I've taken a lot of time. The final point I want to end with today is we need to now start to realize where we're going wrong. I take you back to the very first verse where Allah told us, Kulu washrabu wa la tusrifu. Eat and drink, not a problem. Eat and drink, not a problem, but don't be wasteful. So my concluding points are, be mindful of how much food and drink you consume. The second thing is, be mindful of where this food and drink is coming from. As Muslims, the first thing we should make sure of is that this food is halal. Try and prevent yourself and your children from consuming artificial substances. Try and buy organic food. If you can grow your own vegetables in your garden, grow your own. I'm sure many of the uncles from Bangladesh can help you in that regard. The second thing is we need to bring in exercise into our daily lives. Now, this doesn't have to be an extreme sport. It can be the bare minimum of 10,000 steps a day. 8 glasses of water, 10,000 steps a day, 5 fruits a day keeps the doctor away. Instill in your diet some of the superfoods we learned from the Sunnah, such as honey, such as vinegar, such as dates. All of these things will help you. If you haven't already, study with a teacher and read the Shama'il written by Imam Tirmizi, which goes through the lifestyle of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, the thing that we have to offer for you here today, which we've implemented in many masajid in the local area, is fitness classes in the form of martial arts. So many of you may have seen our advertises, our posters and flyers of Al-Ilm martial arts. So Al-Ilm, because the project is run by ulama, so not only will you benefit from fitness classes, but you'll benefit from being in the company of the ulama. Now I can go on and talk about martial arts all day, but the benefits are countless. The benefits are numerous. It is a full body exercise. Not only do you go away feeling better, more confident, but also you're taking away valuable life skills such as self-defense. So with these few words I'd like to conclude and hope that Allah keep us united in this dunya and reunite us in Jannatul Firdaus. I'm sure Mufti Zahir will tell you more about the possibility of starting classes in your local area, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan for your time, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.